Hey, welcome to part 2. Moving forwards, I moved in with my grandparents, and my grandparents always had little dogs, right? So, there was always a little dog around. And I lived there for a while, and then, I started moving out, moving back, moving out, moving back, not really getting it right. Working landscaping, partying, selling weed, I started to sell weed when I was like 17 on public transit. We had this Max train. I was literally just, hey, right? And got a pager and just, started the whole thing there. And that kind of developed a lot of the friendships that I had over the years. Like, I developed whole big networks of friends, all based on, they were buying stuff from me, And when I say stuff, I sold at one point or another every damn thing there is, and some things you probably never heard of, but all those other things add up to maybe 1% of everything. I was a weed guy, pretty much just all weed. So, and I spent freaking years, 10 years, from 17, and I got busted at 27. And when I got busted, I was probably like one of the most popular people in the entire city of Portland. I had an after-hours club. Everybody was my friend, and I couldn't remember anybody's name. People used to get mad at me sometimes for forgetting people's names. I was horrible at names and remembering people. Because I don't know, I've always been horrible at that. And then getting introduced to, 25 people every freaking day, and I gotta remember them all. I was like, So, I had this, friends, how that goes, a million friends, but when it came right down to it, I only had a few friends, right? Now, I'm jumping all over the place, so it's probably hard to keep track, but maybe you're getting the idea, because really I'm not trying to tell any story, I'm trying to make a big picture here, right? So, I hooked up with this girl, Julie, and I had all these friends, and we were growing weed, and we had all these things, and when things really started to kind of tip was when, so, there's like a brother and a sister, and then the sister and the husband, and that was Dan and Johanna, and I don't know what the brother's name is, but the brother freaking was bragging up the weed fucking things we had going on, and in front of people we don't know who they were, right in front of my girlfriend, and she came and told me, and I confronted him about it, and he called her a liar, and there was no reason why she would just make something up like that. So I fucking beat this guy up right in the fucking, or maybe not beat him, punched on him, in the, in my kitchen there in my house, and that was pretty much like the end of that whole friendship with that, which Dan and Johanna, and even it was Jim, hit the guy that I punched up, yeah. Jim and Johanna, that was the brother and the sister, and then Dan was Johanna, yeah. So, and Dan was really the guy, right? He was the cool guy that came out of like Coos Bay or something, knew everything about growing weed, knew where to get weed, knew, everything about weed, and it was like, Scott met him at a landscape job, introduced me to him, and then we just were it was Donkey Kong time, And Scott got busted, and then the freaking thing with Jim, and then, it was, so that fell apart. Now, Julie, then, I swear, like, she started punching, I'll never forget this, started punching me, like, over, I think, Rachel. Like, she found out I had another girlfriend at the time, and was punching me, right. And I just was like, this is fucked. And I punched her back in her arm. One punch in her arm, like she was punching me in the arm, right? And that started, that was the end of that night, but that started physical bullshit with with her, right? And she had this bullshit with other husband or boyfriends or like that in the past or something, right? So, and I don't know, like, I shouldn't have hit her. She was a tiny little thing, but what, you know, it's a bad reaction that I have, like almost like a fucking instinct, you know. It's just like being hit back, you know. It's like, it's almost a disconnect, you know. If no one's hitting me, I don't just randomly just punch people. She was like friends, and I had all these friends and all this stuff. And by the end of the time when Julie and I were breaking up, like literally, she timed things like we're throwing a dinner party or a barbecue, and just start shit with me like right before the barbecue, knowing these people are gonna just be there in minutes, and just like start like, you know, and I'm just in sucker and just playing it. Like, she literally freaking did shit, and by the time our relationship was over, I had no friends left. Like, all the friends that I had had for years, in some cases, like ever. There was a couple stragglers. I can't say every single solitary friend, but the majority, and like the friends that had been around. I don't know if Dirty Doug was ever like a good friend, but he was my friend for a long ass time. So she called Dirty Doug to move her out of, when we were breaking up, out of the house, right? Knowing that this would just, so all of a sudden, Dirty Doug shows up to my place. He's all, what's up? What's up? Oh, we're here to move out, you know, and I lose it, just fucking blow, you know, go fucking just, and I was a gun-toting guy back then. That was literally the last time I ever saw Dirty Doug. And, you know, when I got out of prison, I was like, oh, internet, fascinating, looking up all these names I could remember of people and such, and I think I found a face, no, I don't remember. Anyway, I think I looked up, and him and the girl that he had kids with, they had, or Cade, I remember, little Cade. Cade was like a mechanic or something. I don't remember when I looked this up, but anyway. So, yeah, I lost, like, almost every friend that I had for forever, you know. And admittedly, and I was doing crazy shit back then, because it was a drug war, and I was a freaking marijuana grower, freaking seller, buyer, you know. And it's like, it's like one of these, I had been robbed, people have been robbed, you know what I mean? You have to fucking have a certain level where people aren't going to try to fuck around, right? So this kind of, you know, shapes my whole life as well, right? So coming out of Julie, totally fucking just devastated. She had, turns out, like, that freaking barbecue, like, the bullshit she was pulling right then, she already had hooked up with some other dude that she ended up fucking marrying. So she literally just wanted to destroy my friendships with every single friend. Like, Brenda and Rebecca I went to fucking high school with. We weren't really friends in high school, but they dropped out too and went to Clackamas Community College, and we're doing the whole dropout and cool Breakfast Club, you know, style shit. And they had just been my friends, you know. It was like, and she literally just, and I would say without a shadow of a doubt she did it intentionally, because I remember it just being just so out of the blue and so bullshit. So that was then just the end of that. And so Julie and I had a lot of cats. Like, we had cats, like 3 cats died, and when we broke up, I want to say like 11, maybe 9, I can't really remember, but I took 2, the original 2, Psycho and Hippie, and I had a kind of a, you know, just kind of a slow crumble of life there for a number of years, or yeah, a couple of years, I guess. I don't know how long exactly, but I think basically until I started doing the bank fraud thing, it was kind of like, whoop, 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 whoop. And then, so at one point I was living in a truck with Psycho and Hippie in there, and then I lived at my grandparents' for a second with the cats, and I left Hippie there. And Psycho, until I was thinking about this story and just thinking about everything, I think this guy that was staying in my apartment with Psycho for 6 months while I was on the run from the feds, when the whole thing fell apart with the bank loan thing, which it's it's a long story. So right when I came back, though, he was like, oh, Psycho got out and he hasn't come back. And I was just like, But I think maybe this guy actually just took him. I think he did. I think he might have. He had one time, and this guy is Kip, and he actually owns a bar on Hawthorne that he used to work at 1201 Club, and then the owner, and so yeah, I'll leave the bar name out of there. It has bar in the name. But, so yeah, that's what I think happened. So Grandma took Hempy to the pound because Hempy scratched her, and they were into dogs. So that's how Hempy ended up. And then, which is actually where I got Hempy from in the first place. Julie and I went to a humane society, I believe, and got him there. And Psycho then, like I said, so that was the end of those pets. Right about the time when Julie and I were in our first house, we're growing weed in the basement. My mom sends my little brother back from Spain to come live with me, right? And, we're partying, doing mushrooms, acid maybe on occasions, at that point, and then a lot of weed smoking, a lot of drinking. So my little brother comes, and it's like, well, here it is, and he promptly moves to my grandma's house. I don't even remember how many days he stayed at my house, but my mom literally gave me this car for taking care of him, and then he just went, which I personally would want to stay with my grandma too, because there was more room. My little house didn't have a lot of room. It was like 1 bedroom, it had a basement, all this stuff. So, but then he promptly went in the military, Marines, I think. Yeah, and got stationed in Japan, I believe. So, bam, he's gone for 4 years, right? So, in that time, and again, there's big stories down there in the thing, this whole bank fraud thing, and I was trying to literally boost his credit, but somebody ratted. And so anyway, he had to go through steps to undo some shit, and I was literally sincerely trying to hook him up. When he got out of the military, his credit was going to be fucking huge, and he was going to have the access to these big loans, right? But literally a fucking jealous ass fucking guy that was pissed off, this dude Gabe, who was pissed off that I wasn't buying weed from him anymore because I was making so much money in this whole bank thing, right? So he basically just fucking watch the whole video. And Gabe was a friend. He was a friend, and I had actually met him through during all this time. I hooked up with this guy Diamond, tattoo artist. It was him and Hillary, Diamond and Hillary, and it was Julie and Guda, and we hung out and did sushi all the time, and Diamond used to make a fuck ton of money, and he was always taking us out to sushi, and so then we kind of became like a big, you know, like the group of friends was like the tattoo shop. And after the breakup with Julie, like those are the friends that I kind of started to become closer with, because I had lost all those other friends. Yeah, and even like the friendship with Scott, like that just all turned into a giant, like that guy is such a piece of trash. His mother literally came to my house and told my mother, don't let your son hang out with my son. And then, okay, so this is like when we're 16 or some shit, or 17, yeah, 16, probably 15, 16. So then, like, 4 or 5 years ago, I'm on Craigslist, and there's his picture with somebody fucking typing out this huge warning about what a piece of shit hot tub salesman he is. And this is one of those people that are just waiting for somebody to die to get a lot of money. And I've found in my life that those type of people are the worst people ever that I've ever had friends or knowledge of. Those people, like the people that just know they've just got it, they just aren't that good of people, right? So now, so that friendship was over right around the same time. It was pretty much right after the breakup with Julie, because I literally, like, actually Julie and I moved into his house and were living for like maybe 2 nights, and then I was living there at his house for like a couple months, and we had a crop, and it was like something that I had invested in, and he like just jacked it a bunch. So anyway, it was like, you owe me 10 grand. We're not friends anymore. So, and then moving forwards, I kind of had these tattoo friends. As I started to get into the glass business, I had a lot of, friends that are just kind of acquaintances that aren't like super good friends, but you kind of hang out with them a bunch, right? So I had this whole like glass blowing crew that I was friends with. And then I had this friend that I had met, a couple, Julie and I actually met him when we were at the country fair slinging beers to make enough money to be there. I met this couple. She was like a dominatrix slash female pimp. And then he had like a bunch of money from like crushing his hand in Alaska, like a big settlement check, right? And his hand was pretty mangled from the whole situation. So they were a couple, and they had this huge house with a whole room full of freaking lizards and shit. It was crazy. And she would just sit on the phone all the time and send girls all over out of the TNA Times and Exotic Magazine, right? So she was huge in that for a while, and she was kind of a friend of mine there for a while, but she just she was smoking cocaine like crazy, primo cigarettes, and just was like, became a different person, and I've seen that a lot, I've done my fair share of partying, but it was always like a party, and then a long time, and then a party, and a long time, where I know people that just never stopped. They just go and go and go and go and go and go, and I would be going and laying in bed and pissed off I had partied and fucking trying to sleep and hungry but not, and and then I'd be like, I hate that shit, I'm never doing it again. It'd be a long ass time before I'd party again, right? So anyway, unfortunately for my health, right? You can't keep up that lifestyle. I've seen more than my fair share of people that have just aged themselves prematurely, especially like hot chicks. Like, everybody wants to be around a hot chick. They give them all this stuff for free, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're not hot anymore, right? And that reminds me of like my my girlfriend that I hooked up with like right after prison. Like at 19, she was super hot, but by 20, I think I saw her at like 23, she was super not. And she had been partying like a fucking rock star since she was like 15 or 16, just like ridiculous, right? Met some older dude and just like, anyway. So moving forwards, I started blowing glass. I had that whole thing going on, and the glass thing just kind of melded into the weed smuggling, because I never stopped selling weed. I just started blowing glass also, right? And it was super fun, you know, art form. I mean, there's whole stories about that down in the freaking thing. I mean, I'm just blowing through this, right? So now I do that, and then basically that just goes like this for, you know, years and years and years. In that time, I hook up with Gail. And Gail is like how I hooked up with Julie was like my first ever speeding ticket, and she was the court clerk. And I was wearing my pink polo, and I was all looking nice, and she was looking freaking super hot. I just got a freaking boob job. And we just kept looking at each other, and I came back there, and she, oh, you don't know. Oh, you're so lucky, you're so lucky. And then she came running out of the freaking courthouse. Oh, here's a copy of your clean record. You can have it like a souvenir. And oh, you want to really make me feel lucky? She's like, how? I go, let me take you out. I'm old enough to be your mother. She was 13 years older than me, so technically she could have been my mother, but that's how that relationship started. Then I didn't really have another relationship until Gail, and that one started, I was pretty much right at the start of glass blowing, and I had paid for a big chunk of rent, like 6 months rent with this furniture, my mom's prize furniture that I had been dragging around with me, and things hadn't been going good. I hadn't been, you know, so I was losing the storage unit and all this, and so I gave this furniture to this, the lady that was had the lizards and TNA Times with the female pimp. I can't remember her name. So, so I lived with her for like, say, her and her boyfriend for 6 months, and that place was so crazy. Oh, it was just nuts. I mean, she literally had people in and out of there all nights, all hours of the night, and the freaking owners lived literally right across the street. And I mean, like, I'd be outside and there'd like be baggies on the fucking like white powder baggies on the fucking ground, just. And this is like a super high-end residential neighborhood up in the West Hills, like a very nice house, like super big. So it was just really crazy, right? When I met Gail, I was at this 1201 club, which was like a super hip, one pool table, lounge, with little private booth areas, fondue, really good recipe food, and I would eat there all the time. So I'd eat there, and then I'd call a cab, and it was like right in downtown, and then right up in the West Hills was where I was staying, right? So there's been this girl sitting at the other end of the bar, and she had been like, you know, kind of, I was there eating, just, you know, fucking drinking, eating. I called me a cab, and she's like, hey, I'll give you a ride. I'm like, oh yeah. And she was just like, literally like, I got in there, and she's like, yeah, you want to just go back to my place? Okay, you know. And I pretty much never left. It was this timing, like, I was running out of rent at that place, and I fucking, and I had warrants for more than like a driving shit, and then like this bank shit with the feds, right? So I was kind of in need of being kind of on the DL. Now she was going to PSU and had a little apartment, little studio apartment right on campus, and So I promptly just kind of started living with her, right? And we went out, basically, we were kind of done when I got busted. We were still kind of friends. Like, we had some really ugly fucking times. We had some fun times. We were together for like 3 years. About the same as Julie. And then about the same as Amy. So I met this girl right when I got out of prison. So 3 years is kind of my old. Like now now it's been like, you know, anyway. So, during that time at Gale, I went from, when I met her, just being a lowly glassblower, and then like all the way up to like being like one of the most popular people in the whole entire city, and balling out of freaking control. Again, videos down there, or whole stories down there. And in this time, I remember, like, I think my little brother was probably in the military for this. I think. I don't really remember. Maybe not. He might have been out. But, I remember my mother had come from, she lived in New York. Oh, that's right. And I went to New York to visit my mom. And she flew me there for my 25th or 26th birthday. And my birthday is December 24th. So the big thing in New York is the damn ball drop. So I extended my trip to hit that ball drop, which pissed her off because now I was there for longer. Well, I got fucking food poisoning at the Soho kitchen from the Locks, and was sick as a dog for the last like 3 days I was in freaking New York. Didn't get to see the ball drop. So, anyway, I'd seen my mother then. She went from Spain to New York and lived in New York for quite a while. And I visited her there once, and then she visited once, and then I got busted. And then she literally came and saw me in jail, and then came and saw me a few times in prison. I was actually paying for her trips, so she could fucking come see my mom there at the visiting center, because I wasn't getting visits from anybody else. And so I had somebody that was dealing with my money that was my friend for some time, and I made him a deal that I was going to loan them the money they needed for the down payment for their house. In exchange for that, I just wanted to be able to put a safe in their backyard. When they busted me, I had money stashed where they didn't find it, and somebody got at it and got it, and unfortunately took a big chunk out that was theirs, and because all the money wasn't mine that I had stashed, because I would collect other people's money for runs, right? And she had just stopped by. So this chick had just dropped off like 80 grand or something. And so that was part of the money that they didn't find, right? Well, so I had money through prison. I had money even after prison, right? Not much. It ran out pretty much, just like getting the shit that I needed to get to, be out of prison, right? So while I was in prison, in jail, no friends. No friends. In prison, though, I did make some friends. One that I have literally kept right up until like maybe a month or so ago, and I think just my life has been so fucking negative, which is kind of the theme to this video, where I'm trying to go with, like, just painting this picture of how all these family, friends, girlfriends, pets in my life and looking forward and how I'm going to approach life. You know, I'm just painting this picture, right? How my life's been. Thanks for watching part 2. Make sure to find part 3.